there is another dimension, beyond that which is knowledge of man. It is a dimension as vast as space, and as limitless as infinity. It is a blackness between the sun and the moon, between science and superstition, and it lies between all of man's fears and the summit of his ability. This is the space of imagination. It is an area which we call the Sci-fi Zone. The year is 2015, a detective on his last case, and the journey into the shadows we are about to discuss could be our journey. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sci-Fi Zone. And tonight we will talk about the underground Lovecraftian movie classic, The Last Case of August T. Harrison. And this is directed by Ansel Faraj. So, August T. Harrison is kind of like a private eye. Well, to be more accurate, he is a detective that is now retired, living out his great life in this small little condo apartment. But he has the itch. You know, he's been a detective his whole life, and he wants to keep solving mysteries. So lucky for him, a certain missing persons case comes to his attention, thanks to his son. And soon, Detective Harrison finds himself in the middle of a dark conspiracy involving the writings of one H.P. Lovecraft.
Write your own warnings to the future. Convince the world that the old ones do indeed exist.
So this movie has been on my radar for a while. I knew it was at a number of horror festivals, and the Lovecraftian elements sounded really cool to me. I've been wanting to see it. I ended up finding it on DVD, and I got a copy of it. So I'm pretty pumped about being able to talk about this on this show. It's one I've been wanting to watch for a long time. Saw the trailer, it seemed very interesting to me. So let's talk about this movie. All right, right out of the gate. Best thing about this movie is the acting. I know, it never happens in bad movies, but this movie proves the point that if you have a good lead, it can carry the movie. And we do have a good lead. We have a great lead. We have an actor named Jerry Lacey, and he's best known for his work in Dark Shadows, but he's been in lots of other things. He's even worked with Woody Allen back in the day. And my God, straight from the start, his acting is fantastic. He fits the role of this like retired detective to the T. Everything he delivers for the most part is very solid and very believable. This movie rises up because of his acting, and that is truly the one factor that makes this movie worth watching. There's a lot of problematic stuff with this movie, but his acting is great, and it kept me engaged. It kept me interested in the story, and I was here for it. I was on board. So Detective August T. Harris is retired, and he lives by himself. His wife suffers from some kind of mental break, which ends up becoming kind of part of the story as it goes on. His son Jason is an artist, and he asks his father to investigate a situation for his friend Eleanor Williams. This leads down kind of a rabbit hole of mystery in a lot of fun ways, a very detective-like noir kind of sense. Jason's art has little to be desired. It's pretty shitty, right? He's no Jenny Seville, right? Let's just say that, you know. We should talk about the detective's apartment. It's like an apartment/condo. It's a little depressing, and I don't really know if it fits his character in like the levels of depressing. Maybe it has something to do with the popcorn ceilings, or possibly the giant water cooler next to the kitchen table, but my God, if I lived there, I would be so depressed. Something about this film is, as it progresses, it has a lot of voiceover and thoughts. As this unravel, you realize that he is telling his story through some writings that he is laying down. And it's a great tool for him to do the narration. It's a great voice for one. You get a lot of moments with visions and madness, and it descends into surrealism, which I'm a big fan of. And he also spends a lot of time just walking around the city and thinking. And it works well. Like, it works well. This movie is a bit of a slow burn in that sense, but it makes it more believable when he starts to experience the horrific things that happen to him. So we learn that his student Drake Johnson at the university is missing. And there's really no leads to find him. And that's kind of where the story starts. There's a lot of introductions to characters. Later, the student eventually reaches out to the detective, and we're kind of drawn in at that point to like this web of darkness. The detective goes to the university, and there's this scene that kind of happens in a theater. A little silly. The student is like, comes out of the shadows. He has Sharpie all over his face. It's pretty silly.
See? I've covered myself completely with protection spells.
And he's obviously fallen into this cult madness with H.P. Lovecraft's writing. He has descended into the madness, and then he basically dies on the spot. He dies. There's a little CG or like creature effect. We learn from the scene that there is a reel of movie footage, like film footage, and what is on it as he watches it, the detective, is he realizes that there's some creatures, and he questions whether it's real or fake. But after the viewing of that reel, the madness sets into him, and he starts to see things that are not there. Very Lovecraftian, very Cthulhu. It was cool. And from that point forward, we get a lot of like dream sequences and surreal moments that really elevate the film, in my opinion. And as we learn from this film reel and the celluloid on it, there is like another world on this. This is where the creatures live. They now live in the film. So the more the movie is played, the more people view it, the creatures are trying to break out of this like alternate universe. So Professor Richard Hobbs is another character. He's a physics professor at the university, and he's interested in multiple universes.
Tentacled monsters exist. And he said that he and Eleanor Williams were further investigating it using old dark magic. Now, you told me that they were researching multiverses.
And theories of multiple universes. The idea that multiple universes can exist alongside our own or in our own. And that's kind of like the theme of the story, is you find out all these characters are kind of dabbling in this Lovecraftian kind of alternative universe, opening of doorways. As it progresses more forward, you realize that everyone's kind of working together. The professor and this woman, the character that comes in, are all trying to they're trying to open this doorway into this other universe, which is dangerous. And as the movie goes forward, we actually get introduced to H.P. Lovecraft. And you're like, what does that mean? They actually made H.P. Lovecraft a character in this movie where he is the writer H.P. Lovecraft, which is kind of like silly. I wasn't a really big fan of that writing-wise, but whatever. You get scenes of H.P. Lovecraft and the detective talking to him, like these dream sequences, and asking him what's going on and why they're trying to open up this door and all this other kind of over-the-top kind of stuff. And more or less, H.P. Lovecraft warns him about these. You gotta like stop these mortals from trying to open up this door. If they open up this door, there's no reverse to what will happen or what will come through it. So the detective kind of snaps back into this reality and realizes he has to do something to stop these people. They're crazy. And then he's also questioning his reality, like, did that really happen? You know, and that's kind of like the fun writing with him and his character as you go back and forth. He's always questioning, is this reality? Am I going crazy? And that's all the fun Lovecraftian kind of psychological stuff you get, which I really like the question of your reality, the question of whether you're crazy or not. Is everyone else crazy? That's good stuff. I'm here for it. So there are not a lot of special effects, like practical wise. There's a couple scenes, maybe one or two, where you actually get like minimal CG or some kind of like creature tentacle. I was hoping for a lot more tentacle action, because when you hear Lovecraftian, you think of like tentacle sea creatures, but not so much in this. A lot of off-screen stuff. Sometimes you get some like visions of like characters that are bloodied and stuff, and that actually came through really cheesy. Some of the surreal scenes, even though they're low budget, I thought were actually done very well, and that comes through in a lot of the editing and the sequencing. But there'd be scenes where like they're in space, or they're like he's walking with Lovecraft through a park and it's black and white, and it worked pretty well. Like you know, for the quality and everything, I was still in the story. I think it does that pretty successfully. It's a slow burn kind of movie. And then we finally send this final standoff where the detective confronts the other characters in the woods, and they're trying to like open up this gate, and they bring them. They're like, you want to see what happens? Come along, and he decides to end it there. Some final thoughts on this video. It's the quality of video quality is very low. It feels like maybe they shot it on like an old consumer grade camera or something. It was 2016. We did have nicer equipment at that point. I don't know. The camera work is kind of shoddy. There's no lighting of any kind. That was like a detriment. This could have used with some nice lighting. And there's some scenes where the color balance is weird and wacky. And there's a scene where they're outside the university at night talking. And it almost feels like they're green screened in, and they're like very like, I don't know, it's so weird, the tonal balances. But that also kind of added to the surrealism. So even if it was a happy accident, I didn't mind it too much. You didn't have too many audio issues with it. Occasionally you had some like kind of bad special effect audio where you're like, there's this water that loops a little too loud when he's walking around. You can hear it just looping. Just some cheap audio effects occasionally pop in. But otherwise, a pretty interesting movie. So, would I recommend it for viewing yourself? I think I would. It was pretty interesting. Again, if it wasn't for the strong lead actor, I probably wouldn't. He really does carry this movie well. He's so good on the screen, and he's so believable even when everyone else is not. That it made it fun, because I was like latched onto his character. I was latched onto his character and wanted to see what happened. No, going into this, it's a slow burn, and there's not a lot of like action, and there's not a lot of like crazy over the top kind of things happening, other than like you get these surreal dream moments. I was still very interested in it, so yeah. Now, would I recommend it as a group? No, I don't think I would. I don't think I would recommend it as a group. Yes, there is moments that are like kind of silly and like some of the quality aspects to this, but it still holds up pretty well. I don't think you're going to have these moments where you're watching with friends and you're going to be laughing about things. You're probably going to be pretty into the story as it unravels, and there are some, issues with the writing, but for the most part, I was pretty in the story. So, thank you for joining us here again on the Sci-Fi Zone. It was a fun time. We drove into some of that Lovecraftian horror, cosmic horror, and who knows where we'll go next time. Sky's the limit, right? Go anywhere. Who knows what we'll watch? Could be good. Maybe you should hang out. Maybe you should stick around. Maybe you should follow us, right? Yeah. Could use some new followers. It'd be cool. A world unlike our own. Creatures lurking in the darkness. A madness unknown to man. Shattering minds like a plate glass window. Forever lost in the Sci-Fi Zone.